District Attorney Sandra Doorley, Sheriff Todd Baxter, New York State Supreme Court Judge Alex Renzi, Penfield Town Court Judge Paul C. Metzler, Penfield Town Court Judge James C. Belling Jr. My name is Chris Chichester. This is the Freedom of Information Law. There are 54 in here. I'm going to read every one. You'll receive this in the next 24 to 48 hours via United Parcel Service. That's the receipt. I went to UPS, 620 Park Avenue. I have a box there. So it says right here, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, 130 South Plymouth Avenue. Sandra Doorley, 47 South Fitzhugh. Alex Renzi waits for me alone at 99 Exchange, and I'll see him again because you're going to be concocting more lies and fiction from me. Psychopaths Incorporated at a district attorney's office, sheriff's office. Penfield Town Court, Paul C. Metzler, 1985 Bad Road, just like Alex Renzi, alone, no jury, no witness box for testimony. James Melly Jr., Penfield Town Court, alone, no witness box for testimony, no jury. And also, I sent this to you, Mark Phillips, at the Monroe County Public Defender. I'm looking forward here. This is yours, Mark. And I believe you'll see me again, Mark, because of what I'm doing right here on YouTube and what I'm doing with the Freedom of Information Law. Thank you for your representation of me. I will always be grateful to you and Regina Harper at the Monroe County Public Defender. So this is it right here. Freedom of Information Law. There are 54 in here, and you will refuse to comply with all four. You will look at this, Todd Baxter, every single one, and in that addled, corrupt mind, you will refuse. You will look at this Sandra Doorley, in that addled, corrupt mind, you will refuse. You will look at this Alex Renzi, and in your addled, corrupt mind, you will refuse. You will look at this Paul C. Metzler, James Melly Jr., and in your addled, corrupt minds, you will refuse. A word such as corrupt requires evidence. This is it right here. You're not going to comply with any. Not a single one. And if I'm incorrect and you do comply, or it's going to be compliance that you think is compliance, it'll be a joke. You know what money comes down to in the United States of America? Does it even have to be said? It comes down to money. If I was wealthy, I wouldn't have spent one goddamn day in jail. And I've been in jail 6 times, and 6 times the prosecutor didn't talk to court. O.J. Simpson is acquitted for many reasons. The driving reason, the driving force behind the acquittal for double murder 25 plus years ago in the most famous trial of the 20th century is O.J. Simpson had money. If O.J. Simpson was some ordinary human being who never went to the University of Southern California, never won the Heisman Trophy, and never played for the Buffalo Bills, and never broke Jim Brown's single-season rushing record at Shea Stadium in 1973, he would have been in state prison in California for life. Money acquits O.J. Simpson. If I had the same amount of money as a common, ordinary millionaire, then I'm a free man always. And that's not to say at all that I have not been defended with honor and integrity by the Public Defender's Office, because I have. Regina Harper came to see me in Livingston County Jail and won my release. And what is extremely disturbing, and what I'll say to the Department of Justice in detail, when I communicate with them, and I'll send this transcript to the Department of Justice. When I write to the Department of Justice, not only to Merrick Garland, but his Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. She's Kristen Clark. And I will describe to the Attorney General of the United States and the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights that it doesn't matter any defense that I have from any attorney in Monroe County, State of New York, the United States of America. I'm just being declared guilty by corrupt judges. And those corrupt judges are Alex Renzi, New York State Supreme Court, Paul C. Metzler from Penfield Town Court, and John P. Lemenzo Jr. before Paul C. Metzler. I've never appeared in front of James Melly Jr. So, How is this explained to the United States Department of Justice, Sandra Doorley? Your prosecutors never uttered one syllable, one sentence in court, and I'm in jail. And I believe the radical decline of your health prevents you from even acknowledging and answering the question. And that's why I had to form a conviction integrity unit. And I'm writing new freedom of information law documents because now I have 54, I was 50. And the first one I'm going to read is about your conviction integrity unit, which I believe is a ridiculous, absurd public relations vehicle for you. Because when the fanatical Monroe County Sheriff's Office concocts lies and fiction and charges for innocent citizens, you can claim that you have this bureaucracy within the district attorney's office to review convictions. I'm being convicted, though, without one of your assistant district attorneys talking in court. So here, you pathetic diva, you are forming a conviction integrity unit, and you don't know this is to police your own corruption, incompetence, and buffoonery. My name is Christopher Chichester. I'm an innocent man. This is the Freedom of Information Law dated December 14, 2022. I will repeat this. Where I can be reached, see Chichester, JUL4 Gmail, 620 Park Avenue, PMB, number 361, Rochester, New York, 14604. The documentation signed by District Attorney Sandra Doorley to create a, quote, conviction integrity unit, end quote, within the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. To create this unit that you wrote about on your official website, there is documentation. Am I correct or incorrect? If there is not documentation, then tell me. And if there isn't documentation to create a unit or bureaucracy within the district attorney's office, why? And what does this thing do? Are there names? And if there are names, how many names are there? I'm going to be on here, I believe, on YouTube, 30 plus minutes, only about this contraption. That's Sandra Doorley's contraption. And when I say I'm demanding information about it, this is the information. Freedom of Information Law. The minutes of every conviction integrity unit meeting at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office of District Attorney Sandra Doorley. If you have a unit that is designed to handle claims of innocence, and that's your phrase on your website, then it meets. The unit meets. And if the unit meets, people talk, and when people talk, there are minutes. I've been in public meetings in Albany and Washington, D.C., and there's a public meetings law in Albany and Washington, D.C. for both the United States Congress, my former employer, New York State Legislature, my former employer. So if you have a conviction integrity unit, it's subject to the opens meeting law in New York. 70 minutes. And I know you'll refuse. I'm only on the second one. And I know you're going to refuse. I'm going to read 52 more. Every single one you refuse because you're corrupt. You, Todd Baxter, and that ridiculous narcissism that infects you, have a podcast called Behind the Badge with MCSO. I'll try not to laugh. And I have not listened to it, but I will. And I don't know if this is a continuing podcast where you will be online in the future, but I will find out and then I'll listen to you. Because you cannot contain yourself and control yourself with your language. Because you are always erupting in buffoonery and incompetence. And you say things that I have never heard any law enforcement official say. Quote, I have a passion for jails, end quote. So I'm looking forward to listening to you on Behind the Badge with MCSO and the purpose of this Freedom of Information Law. What's the cost of it? You have to have a producer. You're not just sitting there in front of a microphone on a podcast without a producer. And is the producer a uniformed Monroe County Sheriff Office employee? When I worked as a state employee for the majority leader in Albany, there was a separate division called radio and television. And they were producers, and I had to work with them because I worked in the press office. Do you have producers in uniform at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office that produce behind the badge with MCSO? Freedom of Information Law. The cost to taxpayers for the production of the, quote, behind the badge with MCSO podcast, which Sheriff Todd K. Baxter declares his intent to be, quote, as transparent as possible with the public, end quote. That's a lie. Because if you were as transparent as possible with the public, I would not have what I'm about to show you. This stack of Freedom of Information Law documents. And the number you have complied with here is 0. So here you are in this ridiculous 1984 where you're claiming that you're going to be as transparent as possible, and you haven't complied with any of my Freedom of Information Law documents, and you won't comply with any of these 54. I just started to write this next one. As I said before, in Albany, I was a state employee. There was the 40-hour work week. And then when the 41st hour arrived and it was self-reporting, compensatory time began. And then if you worked a 60-hour work week, that's 20 hours. And then if you worked another 60-hour work week, that's 40 hours. And this accumulates. And I had at one point 500 hours, and I worked on a campaign, and I was still paid. So you have the equivalent of compensatory time at the sheriff's office. Freedom of Information Law. Does Sheriff Todd K. Baxter allot compensatory time to employees that have worked time beyond the standard 40-hour work week that is not, quote, vacation time, end quote, where the Monroe County Sheriff Office employee is paid? This can possibly remove you from office. The accumulation of everything I'm doing where you're refusing to answer can remove you from office. I don't even know with absolute certainty that you're fleecing taxpayers. And that's what I'm attempting to discover as I read this. I believe now this is only the second time. And a certain district attorney who doesn't know if it's Democrat or Republican, just like you, Todd Baxter, who also refused to comply. Freedom of Information Law. Does District Attorney Sandra Doorley allot compensatory time to employees that have worked time beyond the standard 40-hour work week that is not, quote, vacation time, end quote, where the Monroe County District Attorney's Office employee is paid? Perry Duckles, who is the de facto district attorney who nobody voted for. What's the answer? Perry Duckles. Is there confusion if you're watching me? Because I don't know who watches me. But if you are, and if you read this in the office, and you're confused about what I'm demanding, I'm not asking, then contact me here at 620 Park Avenue, PMB number 361, Rochester, New York, 14604. Or you can call me on the phone at 813-648-4441. That's my iPhone. And Perry, you could call me on the phone and tell me you want me to appear in front of one corrupt judge where there isn't a jury 12, there isn't a witness box for testimony, there isn't a table for a prosecutor, there isn't a table for a defense attorney, and you can just declare me guilty of some ridiculous, pathetic concoction, and then you can keep me in jail for as long as you want where I'm not told how long I'm going to be in jail. And that's happened to me 6 times. When I say there are things that can remove you from office, this is possible. This is not the specific language of state or federal law or both, but I will find the specific language of state or federal law. And when I read this, you're going to immediately know what I'm talking about, and you're going to immediately refuse because you're corrupt. Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. The personal financial disclosure of Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. You know exactly, precisely what I'm demanding from you. The personal financial disclosures I looked at for my former boss, Governor George E. Pataki, for my former boss, Congressman Lamar Smith, for my former boss, Senator Olympia Snowe. I could see the range and I could see their investments, and it was in full compliance with the law. You, Todd Baxter, are required to file this type of documentation. So where is it? I'm not going to go to some campaign finance board or some other bureaucracy in Monroe County and look for it and search for it. You find it, you skinhead, stooge, and party switcher, and send it to me at 620 Park Avenue, PMB number 361, Rochester, New York, 14604. And if there's confusion, when you want to call me up, 813-648-4441, and tell me you want to get me again in front of one corrupt judge. You want to beat me, you want to flog me, you want to draw and quarter me, you want to castrate me. personal financial disclosure of District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Michelle Crowley, Director of the Grand Jury. Can you please print this out since you're copied on this and bring it to the District Attorney of Monroe County and tell her I demand to see her personal financial disclosure. You know me, Michelle Crowley, Director of the Grand Jury. Do you recognize my likeness? Because I'm a ham sandwich. Michelle Crowley, quote, you could have died a ham sandwich. How come I wasn't called to your grand jury? What's not in these Freedom of Information Law documents is how you operate that grand jury. I can have possibly 50 Freedom of Information Law documents just on what you do alone at that grand jury. Well, I don't know the grand jury's convened. I don't know how many grand juries there are. I don't know what the vote is on the grand jury. I'll be contacting you about this, even though I already have, in a general way. I have not used the Freedom of Information Law upon you, Michelle Crowley, or your boss, Sandra Doorley, about the grand jury, but I will. And you will refuse to answer every single demand and question in it because you're corrupt. Personal financial disclosure of supervising judge, New York State Supreme Court, 7th Judicial District, that is Alex R. Renzi. I do not know if he has this online or if he's been compelled to provide this, but I really am interested to see where his money is, given his age, and if he has any conflict of interest. If I obtain this document, and then I look at his docket, if it's called a docket, and the court appearances in his cases, because I've seen some of it, and he has investments with companies or individuals that appear before him, that's a total disgrace. But I don't know. I'm going to try to find that out. And that takes effort. And it's time consuming. And he will refuse because he's corrupt. Freedom of Information Law. Personal financial disclosure, Penfield Town Court Judge Paul C. Metzer. $28,000 she's paid. So Paul C. Metzer, the simple question to be answered from what I'm demanding is, where's your money? Freedom of Information Law. Personal financial disclosure, Penfield Town Court Judge James Melly Jr. The simple question to be answered, James Melly Jr., is, where's your money? How do you discipline your employees at the Sheriff's Office and the District Attorney's Office? I believe there's no process whatsoever. And how is that explained to the United States Department of Justice? That it does not matter if your employees violently attack innocent citizens, Sheriff Todd Baxter, which has happened to me. It doesn't matter if your employees don't talk in court and citizens are in jail, which has happened to me. It does not matter if a document such as order of protection has been abused by judges like Paul C. Metzer. It does not matter what any of your employees do or are a party to in New York because you're corrupt. How do you discipline your employees? Todd Baxter, Sandra Doorley. Freedom of Information Law. The internal disciplinary records or documentation for employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. That Sheriff Todd K. Baxter has reprimanded, terminated, disciplined employment at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. Freedom of Information Law. The internal disciplinary records or documentation for employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. That District Attorney Sandra Doorley has reprimanded, disciplined, and terminated from employment at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. Have you, Sandra Doorley, since you were elected District Attorney, had an employee across from you, and to use the most common way to do it, said you're fired? Have you Donald Trumped this person? Or have you done it in a different way that at least can respect the dignity of the employee? And what's the answer? Do you direct your employees to terminate as an assistant district attorney? You do it yourself. You should do it yourself. Sheriff's office is different given the size of it. But there you are in your little shack. I've seen the payroll the first time I acquired it. I think there were only 75 names on it. So what's the process in your office for how you force your employees to comport themselves with the highest degree of ethics and integrity? Because you don't have ethics and integrity at the district attorney's office. I know you're going to refuse to answer because you're corrupt. As simple as it gets. I had to use this, I think it was at least 20 times before I finally acquired the payroll. It was over and over when I got out of Monroe County Jail the first time. Freedom of Information Law. I was online and on YouTube, send me the payroll, send me the payroll. And then when I first read it, I knew why you were refusing. Do you have the children of your employees on that payroll, Todd Baxter? Is Camille Miller $12,000, the daughter of Kathleen Miller at $34,000? And is Camille Miller a minor at $12,000? And the daughter of Andrew Miller at $77,000? And is Andrew Miller and Kathleen Miller married? And what's the state of nepotism at the sheriff's office? You're drenched in nepotism. There's no doubt about it. And this is what an audit will uncover by Controller Thomas B. DiNapoli. Send me the payroll. Freedom of Information Law. A list of every public employee at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office by one, length of employment, years, the day, month, and year the employee is hired. Do you forcibly retire your employees at either the age of 62 or when they've reached 30 years or 35 years? And the answer is no. And why? Because you want that political support within the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. I believe just like the employee I saw at Monroe County Jail was in the vicinity of 70 years old, you got the old boy network there. There are certain phrases in the life of America, the ordinary life of the American citizen, that really have meaning and value. And one phrase is the old boy network. The old boy network is alive and well at the sheriff's office because that's your political support. There are individuals at that sheriff's office you knew when you were still in Greece, before you were elected Monroe County Sheriff, before you beat this 16-year fossil who was ready to go. I mean, he was just so completely unable to do the job anymore at 16 years. And you have arrived at that day, Todd Baxter. Freedom of Information Law. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office is District Attorney Sandra Doorley. I will demand this in a 6-month period since your first day in office. And then I'll be able to compare how you delivered raises, $5,000 raises, $10,000 raises, $15 raises. Perry Duckles, the de facto district attorney in Monroe County, do you give raises to employees? Does Sandra Doorley do it? How is that done? Because your entire existence is tax dollars. And I know if I had to read your mind, you're thinking this is just outrageous and perhaps we should try to arrest him for what he's saying here at this 22 minutes on this YouTube and how obnoxious and rude he is and demanding. Look at the way he's talking to us. This is exactly what I believe certain human beings will think if they watch me. I don't know about you, Perry Duckles, but I've contacted you directly, Perry, where I asked you a simple question I'm going to get to with the document that binds you to tell me the answer with what's the name of my prosecutor's silence. Freedom of Information Law. A list of every public employee at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office by one, length of employment, years, the day, month, and year the employee is hired. If Sandra Doorley is elected, that's the way it works. How long have you been at the District Attorney's Office, Perry Douglas? I think it's 20 years. I don't know. There are employees when they are at an institution, bureaucracy, or business for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, the employee atrophies. The employee can no longer function at the highest level. That's definitely the case for the Sheriff's Office. I'm less certain for the District Attorney's Office. But if I was to look at your payroll and I knew the length of time your employees serve, that would be some indication of the inability of your office to function at the highest professional level. People should be fired or forced to retire if they have reached an age such as 62 and they're no longer effective. Age alone is not an indicator of incompetence. So, tell me the answer and you'll refuse. Freedom of Information Law. Total cost of overtime, time and a half, well paid beyond base hours calculated at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office of Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. This is me as a broken record. I'm about to be a broken record for you, Todd K. Baxter, the Benito Mussolini of Monroe County. Public employees abuse overtime in every single state, in every single county in the United States of America, in every single capital, in all 50 capitals, it's happening. Is it happening at the sheriff's office? I don't know. How is this done? There's different ways to do overtime. When an employee reaches the 41st hour, then he could just simply be paid the same hourly wage or rate as the first 40 hours. Or you could have time and a half where it's changed. The calculation is changed based on the salary. Or you could just say if you work 41 hours to 50 hours, here's an extra $1,000 for this week. It's any number of ways it can be done, and how's it done? Because I don't know. Tell me. And you refuse because you're corrupt. Freedom of Information Law. Total cost of overtime, time and a half, all paid beyond on base salaries calculated at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Do you receive overtime, Perry Douglas? Your salary, I believe I have to do this from memory, is about $170,000. I could be incorrect because I don't know. Have you, Perry Douglas, because you're definitely six figures, high six figures, been paid overtime? And have you, Perry Douglas, exceeded the $203,000 salary of Sandra Doorley? If not, is there any employee at the District Attorney's Office that is paid more money than the salary set in statute at $203,000 for Sandra Doorley because that employee is earning overtime? Freedom of Information Law. I just started to write this because employees will lie about being sick. They don't want to go into the office. They were out the night before, drinking and partying and carousing. They cannot get up. They wake up in the morning, the alarm clock goes off, and there's the thought immediately, I cannot go into the office and work a full day because they're hungover. That's one reason an employee will abuse a sick day. Then there's the sick day where the employee is legitimately sick. If someone has a sick day in calendar year 365 days of 30 plus days, and that employee has not been diagnosed with any serious illness, something's going on with that employee. What's going on at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office with sick days, Sheriff Todd Baxter? Freedom of Information Law. The total number of sick days and total number of hours employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office of District Attorney Sandra Doorley have accumulated by one, the number of sick days, the number of hours. You know who would know this answer? True Superwoman Julie Hahn, who didn't win her race for Monroe County Court. This is the joke, the ballot access laws, the election laws, in New York, where she's not the victor. She doesn't win. And there she is on the bench in court. I will contact Senate Majority Leader Andrew Stewart-Cousins and Carl He's about changing that law. If you're going to be on a court and it's a judgeship and there's an election, the victor should be in there. Not Julie Hahn, who I think is in there with 21 or 20% of the vote. Alex Renzi is in New York State Supreme Court because he won his election at 24% of the vote, I believe. Julie Hahn didn't win anything. Julie Hahn didn't win a damn thing. Julie Hahn's a loser. And Julie Hahn, the loser, is on Monroe County Court. That's a disgrace. Total number of sick days, total number of hours that supervising Judge Alex Renzi, 7th Judicial District, New York State Supreme Court, has accumulated by one, the number of sick days and number of hours. On the official website, there are 18 New York State Supreme Court judges. I looked at this hackocracy in astonishment the first time I looked at it, because I've looked at it repeatedly. And I'm going to contact Reg Kamel return receipt every single one of his employees. They'll all sign for it. And this is going to be an extreme amount of work for me. But I want every single one of his colleagues at 99 Exchange to know what he's done with me. And I'm going to demand information from them too. Because this is happening to me as an innocent man. It's happening to other citizens in other courts with other judges. So he's in the vicinity of 70 years old. I looked at his biography. He worked in the district attorney's office. I think it was 1990 to 1992. You may even know him, one Sandra Doorley, in a friendly way, or he may even be a real, true, genuine friend. I don't know, because I don't know anything about your personal life. That's not my business. But those type of relationships are dangerous, because if you know this guy and you're friends with him and you have that cordial relationship where you could email him and you could call him and he could email you and call you, well, you could put the screws to anybody in Monroe County, and that's exactly what's happened to me. Freedom of information law. The total number of sick days, the total number of hours employees of Pemberton Town Court in Pemberton, New York, have accumulated by the number of sick days and number of hours. This I'm particularly interested in because both of these hacks, Paul C. Metzer and James Maloney Jr., are, if not past 70, they're rapidly approaching 70. I mean, this Paul C. Metzer's hair fell out. She wears the most hideous Phyllis Diller wig I've ever seen. You can see the glue strips on the wig of Paul C. Metzer. I'm trying not to laugh because you can't. Freedom of information law. The cost of taxpayers of Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter spending taxpayer dollars to settle employment-related discrimination lawsuits fair to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Is there sexual harassment at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Todd Baxter? Yes or no? You refuse to answer because you're corrupt. Same question for you, Sandra Doorley. The cost of taxpayers of Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Doorley expended taxpayer dollars to settle employment-related discrimination lawsuits fair to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Is there sexual harassment at the District Attorney's Office, Sandra Doorley? You refuse to answer because you're corrupt. I will write this complaint. This complaint, where I'm demanding it from you because they're on file. These complaints have been written. Perhaps it's a handful, perhaps it's hundreds. I don't know. But I'll write this complaint. And I'm using this documentation in the Freedom of Information Law to obtain what? Complaints about your hacks and criminals and sociopaths, Sandra Doorley. The number of complaints written or filed by defendants about attorneys or employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, with the 4th Judicial Department Attorney Grievance Committee. These assistant district attorneys assigned to my cases should be disbarred, as I've said repeatedly on this Google product that is YouTube. I cannot begin the process to disbar these attorneys who have never talked in court if you're refusing to disclose the names, which I'm going to get to, and I know you're going to refuse, which I will tell the United States Department of Justice. And this is where I'm going to go. Also, the 4th Judicial Department Attorney Grievance Committee. Send me the names. You pathetic diva, Sandra Doorley. In the United States Army, soldiers have to qualify with the weapon. It used to be an M16. And they're trained with the weapon. What's the qualifying marksmanship for the sheriff's office? Because you employ psychopaths, Todd Baxter, and psychopaths should never have a weapon. So how's it done? What specifically, precisely? I'm going to be more specific. And just like with my previous Freedom of Information Law, you know what I'm talking about. Like with financial disclosure. When I say I want to see your financial disclosure, you know. You know what I'm talking about with when I use the phrase basic marksmanship. Is your response to me that that's none of my business when your employees are walking around with that handgun that can be used on innocent citizens for any reason and killed and murdered in the streets? How do your employees qualify with their weapons? And do you demand excellence in the handling of the weapon? Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. What is the basic marksmanship requirement for employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. This is the $0 employee. This is the freak. I thought he was a double dipper when I first acquired the payroll. I was going page after page looking for his name, $0. Is he paid private money to work in the sheriff's office? Is he paid campaign money to work in the sheriff's office? There's campaign money that you, Todd Baxter, have from your campaign in 2017, 2021. That's one set of private money. Another set of private money is unrelated to campaign donations. Why is he going into the office since January 1, 2018 for no money? 5+ years, no money? This is what I'll tell Thomas P. DiNapoli when I demand he be audited. The day and year Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter rehired Michael Rather after his 20-year career ended in January 1, 2018, and send to the email listed at address below documentation signed by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter to rehire Rather. It's as simple as it can be. And you refuse because you're corrupt. It's the cost of fanaticism, the Cost of surveillance device purchased with taxpayer dollars by Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter and affixed to a building at 2025 Pemke Road to monitor Christopher Chichester, 26 Sandra Drive, walks through the parking lot next to the building and asks the lunatic fringe. Is your answer you don't know what I'm talking about? Is your answer he's really out there with this language? I don't get it. This is fiction. This is fantasy. I have no idea what this Christopher Chichester in Rochester, New York is talking about with a surveillance in 2025 Pemke Road. Is that your answer? I've already seen the images. Is this money you expended from your budget at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, or are you using private technology on this building at 2025 Pemke Road for a business called Consumer Insights? What's the answer, you Benito Mussolini skinhead? That's it right there. Freedom of information on the cost for time recession approved by Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Photograph of 10 Monroe County Sheriff Office employees underwater in a pool of total disgrace. I don't care if it's a private event. How is this explained to Thomas B. Napoli? You will tell Thomas B. Napoli I'm not going to answer anything about you asking if this is taxpayer dollars. I just won't answer. You just believe that stone cold silence is the way to go, just like with Ryan Fisher on a junket. The cost for a hotel and plane ticket of Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher attended the Super Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia on February 3rd, 2019. There he is. Do you, Todd Baxter, know that Atlanta, Georgia is 2,000 miles away from Rochester, New York? What's he doing there? Was this for a conference? Tweeting about it. I'm not going to read that again. This is what this flag of the state of New York looks like. This is where Ryan Fisher should be, in the state of New York and Monroe County. That's not where Ryan Fisher was. Ryan Fisher's down there in Atlanta, Georgia, where the Atlanta Braves play, where the Atlanta Falcons play. Here he is again. Not going to read that again. I've read that previously. I'll write a freedom of information law about your canine unit and how it operates and how many dogs you have and how much you spend for your canine unit. I am ambivalent about the utility of a canine dog unit in law enforcement because I have researched it when I first started to write about him, demanding information about him. About, do dogs really assist the police in uncovering evidence in criminal acts? I don't know. How many dogs do you have at the sheriff's office? Is he the only employee that has a canine? How many employees do you have canines with? As ridiculous as it sounds, I'll write the freedom of information law. It'll be language almost just like that. How many employees do you have assigned at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office with a dog or a canine? And all I could fleece the taxpayers in that regard too. The documentation of voucher or other documentation signed by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter to purchase an airline ticket and hotel room from Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher who traveled to Atlanta, Georgia for the Super Bowl on February 3rd, 2019. Did he go to the game? Was he at the stadium while the game was being played with his dog? Was he inside the stadium watching the game? Was he watching the game on TV? How did that happen? And was that for a conference? The reason why I ask that is if you, Todd Baxter, have been to a conference, and if, in fact, you're sending your employees to these ridiculous conferences that fleece taxpayers. The cost for the care and feeding of Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher's German Shepherd Lola during his trip to Atlanta, Georgia on February 3rd, 2019. Your employees are grossly overweight. You, Todd Baxter, do not demand physical fitness from your employees, and as such, you're placing the lives of your own employees at risk. Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Why? Why don't you demand physical fitness from your employees? When I was on the cross-country team in high school, the home meets were at Sunken Meadow State Park on the North Shore of Long Island. And this is a famous cross-country course for runners on Long Island, Nassau and Suffolk County. And at the 2-mile mark on the 3-mile and 5,000-meter course is what's called Cardiac Hill. And Cardiac is a hill that is only 50 yards, and this is a monster hill. I don't believe that half of your Monroe County Sheriff Office employees could stand at the bottom of that hill and then run to the top without stopping. Because I've been around them, and it's a disgrace. Why don't you demand physical fitness from your employees, Sheriff Todd Baxter? And an answer is, you're not in shape, Sheriff Todd Baxter. And you're overweight, Sheriff Todd Baxter. And there's no way you, Sheriff Todd Baxter, could run up Cardiac Hill at Sunken Meadow State Park today. What's the state of violence at your jail? The Commission on Correction in Albany, I believe, can force you to answer, because you're not going to answer me. Even though that's a serious matter when you have an inmate that's in jail and then they're committing crimes inside the jail, when that inmate should be doing everything possible to win freedom and not attract the attention of the jail employees and inmates with crimes in jail. The number of criminal acts or criminal actions where an inmate appeared in court for a criminal charge with a criminal act or charge occurred at Monroe County Jail from January 1, 2022 or December 14th, 2022. So it's calendar year 2022. Is your answer these three words? I don't know. Is that your answer to this? I don't know about criminal acts at Monroe County Jail? Because in refusing to answer, it's a possibility that it's I don't know. Given the magnitude of your responsibilities as a Monroe County Sheriff, I can understand why you would not know this immediately, but you can find out by asking the superintendent. I believe the superintendent of the jail is Corey Brown, but I could be wrong. I'm only doing this from memory. I don't have the payroll. I will contact your jail superintendent directly and send his freedom of information. And I'll have 1,000 words just about violence in Monroe County Jail to your jail superintendent, and I'll copy you and the Commission on Correction, Sheriff Todd Baxter. This is extremely important for the civil and constitutional rights of every citizen, where an arresting officer is accountable for facts and circumstances during arrest, as it states. And if there's violence committed upon a citizen during arrest, which has happened to me repeatedly, I've been violently attacked at a Wegmans when your 5 vehicles and 10 plus psychopaths descended on me. Your employee ran at me, knocked me down, my head slammed down on the concrete pavement. I walked into the Penfield Public Library. 2 of your psychopaths followed me in there. Your employee with the last name Seamus ran at me, held his arm out like this, clotheslined me. I fell down. My head slammed against the ceramic tile. I've talked about that repeatedly. I'm being violently attacked by your employees. So what's the answer to this freedom of information law? Does Sheriff Todd K. Baxter assign an arresting officer to every arrest for the accountability of facts and circumstances of the arrest? The answer is no. The name and charge of every inmate of Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter's Monroe County Jail from January 1, 2018 to December 14, 2022. Separate your violent inmates from the nonviolent inmates. I've said this over and over and over. First time in Monroe County Jail, I sat down right next to a man charged with murder. As your Democrat, Todd K. Baxter, the answer to this question is polarizing for Democrats and Republicans. And is your answer yes or no? Because yes or no is polarizing. Do you, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, hire employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office based on gender, race, or gender? If your answer is yes, then that's ridiculous and absurd. Nobody should hire anyone in the United States of America based on race or gender. If your answer is no, then that's going to enrage your base of the Democratic Party that's obsessed with race and gender. Do you, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, hire employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office based on race or gender? As you're a Democrat, Sandra Doorley, the answer yes or the answer no will enrage your base in the Democratic Party that's obsessed with race or gender. Give me these names, and you'll refuse. I know you'll refuse, even though you will sign for it tomorrow. I'm telling you here, it says right here, my new PS, what I'm about to read, these perhaps are the Freedom of Information Law documents that I demand the most. I demand all of them, but I had to rank them in importance to me, in my life, and what you've done to me. These names here allow me to go to the grievance committee and begin a process to disbar these attorneys that have never talked to court, that have signed to my concocted criminal charges, my fiction, my lies. My lies from your office. tell me these names. I'll tell Attorney General Merrick Garland that when I go to my box on Park Avenue here, right there, when I go to 620 Park Avenue, you sign for it. You will sign for it in the next 24 to 48 hours. I'm reading here on YouTube. I'm not going to have any names. Because screw up, Sandra Doorley. Documentation for the case for Christopher Child, John P. Lomenzo Jr. in Pampletown Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? Is this Julie Hahn? Documentation for the case for Christopher Child, Paul C. Metz from Pampletown Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? This is the prosecutor, Regina Harper, the Monmouth County Public Defender's Office, said to me, quote, the prosecutor's not backing down. I saw a picture of him online on, I believe, your website. Now, I've not been able to find a picture of him since. So I don't know what happened to him, but more importantly, I don't know his name because I will seek his disbarment, just like I'll seek your disbarment, Sandra Doorley. Freedom of information. The documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester, New York State Supreme Court for Alex R. Renzi. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? As I said to you in a previous YouTube, in my last appearance in New York State Supreme Court, where Duke of New York, A number one, Alex Renzi, said to me, I was finished and done. There were two females behind me. I don't know if they're court employees or they're the employees of the district attorney's office assigned to my concocted charges, my fiction, my lies. So who has my case before Alex Renzi, you pathetic diva? Speaking of pathetic, a list of defendants in Pampletown Court for Paul C. Metz. It's as simple as it gets. Send it to me. And this is not a list of defendants. It would be a manila envelope. I will open this. What a joke. A list of defendants in Pampletown Court for James Smiley Jr. That will include Jermaine Bem. Do you know what I'm talking about? I've talked about him repeatedly. A list of defendants in Pampletown Court for John P. Lomenzo Jr. I don't care if he's retired. Send it to me. A list of defendants in the New York State Supreme Court for supervising Judge Alex R. Renzi and his $208,000 salary. Duke of New York, A number one here, I believe has never been asked this. And I think that when he goes through this, when he receives this, because right here, it says ship date, December 14th. And there's his name right there, Alex Renzi. So this is the UPS receipt that I got today. He's going to look at this. This is why he's corrupt. When I say that someone's corrupt, it is specific behavior and actions. List of defendants. It's as simple as it gets. He refused. This is why he's corrupt. He's just not any other hack in there. I think it is 18. And he supervises all these other judges. I didn't even know that there was a title, supervising judge. I understand Chief Justice, where on the Supreme Court with the 9 justices, you have to have a Chief Justice. But he's the supervising judge. What exactly does that do? I understand someone has to make decisions, but what decisions does he make as supervising judge? And I will go into detail asking him these questions, and he refused to answer. This is the Dane Blouse third case. Send me these defective documents, you skinhead widow. The, quote, defective documents, end quote, cited by John P. Lomenzo Jr. in the Democratic Chronicle newspaper in the case of Dane Blouse III. He releases him because he knows the family. He doesn't recuse himself. And, Paul C. Metz, I'm going to get to you and conflicts of interest in Pampletown Court. Same thing with you, James Smiley Jr. Do the same thing with Alex Renzi. I have not decided yet that language and any examples that I'm going to use or any facts or circumstances. But I do believe you have conflicts of interest. Freedom of Information Law. The cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monmouth County, New York State by employees of the Monmouth County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd Baxter. It's as basic as it gets. This could really enrage citizens of Monmouth County if you're sending your employees out of Monmouth County time after time after time. Like to Watkins Glen. The cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monmouth County, New York State by employees of the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Sandra Doorley, you fail to understand what I'm demanding of you here about your employees, and if they're not in the office or in a courtroom, and if they're by some swimming pool near a hotel having a good time. Speaking about having a good time, the cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monmouth County, New York State by employees of Pampletown Court, Paul C. Metz, James Smiley Jr., and John P. Lomenzo Jr. They're in there in this little nauseating room without a jury, without a witness box for testimony, without a table for a defense attorney, without a table for a prosecutor. And you force the citizens of Pampletown, New York into this little room, the Star Chamber. Star Chamber is so familiar to American citizens because of the fanaticism and corruption of judges. This is the fanaticism and corruption of judges in this little room. And I've been telling you for a significant period of time to exceed 18 months to redirect defendants away. I'm going to go in there and sit down right in front of them. I'm going to sit right in front of you, Paul C. Metzer, right in the first row. I'm going to stare right at you. I want to see what happens in there. And I believe you'll demand that I be arrested and you'll tell me to get out of your courtroom. And I want to see if, in fact, happens what I believe is happening where everybody's guilty. Because there's no trial in Penfield Court. Court is synonymous with trial. There's no trial. Just Skell is just right in front of Paul C. Metzer, James P. Mellon Jr., John P. Metzer Jr. before Paul C. Metzer, and then guilty. Freedom of information. The cost of taxpayers all travel out of Monroe County by supervising judge, New York State Supreme Court, Alex R. Renzi, such as the Magistrates Association, where he was having a really good time, and it is alarming, the photographs of him. I said to him, "Are you an alcoholic, Alex?" And one of my last appearance, I think it was, because I'm trying to enrage him, because I saw those photographs of him. Freedom of information on the cost of the trip to Watkins Glen, New York by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter did the Monroe County Sheriff's Office expend taxpayer dollars for one hotel, 2 a plane ticket, 3 a per diem. It's just an abomination. There's no other word for it. Divergent is incompatible. You being in Watkins Glen, you skinhead and stooge, is incompatible with your job as the sheriff of Monroe County. You fail to understand this. You don't even know how to do your job. The cost of taxpayers of Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Doorley attended Saratoga Springs, New York District Attorney Association of the State of New York Summer Conference. I don't know, but tell me if you went. The cost of taxpayers of Saratoga Springs, New York, and Sheriff Todd K. Baxter approved the expenditure of tax dollars to attend the Undersheriff's Training Conference at the Gideon Putnam Hotel in Saratoga, New York. The Undersheriff's Corey Brown. Did he go? Did anybody go? And I had demanded these about 80% of what I just read on November 28th, and I sent you 3 other YouTubes, and everybody here, this is Psychopaths Incorporated here. This is all your emails. So I don't know if you're blocking me, if you think that even though your entire repulsive, nauseating existence is tax dollars, because your emails end in .gov, and you can just be indifferent and ignore what I'm demanding. I'm demanding information, as I just read these 54 Freedom of Information Law documents, and now I'm at 52 minutes on this YouTube. And what's going to happen, even though I went to Park Avenue, 620 Park Avenue, and this is going to arrive in the next 24 to 48 hours, even though you have it. When I go to my UPS store and I open up that box with this key, there's going to be nothing in there. Or, as I've said repeatedly now, there's going to be documentation in there where one of you disgusting, sickening cretins at that district attorney's office is going to attempt to force me into a courtroom somewhere where you don't have to talk, because you know you don't have to talk to deliver me to jail. It is astonishing that a citizen can be delivered to jail when a prosecutor doesn't talk, and that's happened to me 6 times. Now I know what justice is about. Justice is about money. If I had money, I wouldn't spend 1 day in jail. And that's just the way it is, to use that cliche. And I have been defended with honor and integrity. So, every employee at the district attorney's office, sheriff's office can walk to that parking lot in Penfield, New York. The destruction of my life and why I'm here in this loft in Rochester began with $67,000 cop from hell, Shannon Meyer, to Monroe County Sheriff's Office, and a warrant for my arrest for walking through this parking lot. Am I New York's 4,000-time criminal, and in that photograph are 2 of my neighbors? How is this possibly explained? Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, about what you have done to me. And what you have done to me is destroy my life and violate my civil and constitutional rights, where prosecutors never talk to court. The reason why a prosecutor doesn't talk to court is because the prosecutor knows it's going to be absolutely ridiculous and absurd to attempt to make an argument that I've committed a crime and I'm just being convicted on paper by moral bankruptcy that I have never experienced in my life. And I will continue to use this document here. That is the Freedom of Information Law. This is blank. I'll fill this out again during the next 48 hours. I'll be back on here. I'll be back at UPS. And when I go to the box on Park Avenue to see if the information I'm demanding is in it, there'll be nothing in it. Because you, Sheriff Todd Baxter, you, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, you, Judge Alex Renzi, you, Judge Paul C. Metzler, you, Judge James Finelli Jr., Divergent. And Divergent means you're incompatible. And you're incompatible with justice in the United States of America.